Perfect. All right. So welcome everybody. The focus today, or our pose of the day, is Virabhadrasana 1, so first warrior. And it's an interesting pose, and it's one that I think that we ignore a lot. We either go through it in our way to something else, or we try to move away from it because of its simplicity, right? But it's complicated. It's a complicatedly simple position, or it looks like it's very simple, but there's a lot of complicated dynamics going on. So the challenge with Warrior One is that it's a very squarely oriented position, right? Everything is designed to try to face straight ahead, but to get to that straight ahead position, there's actually a lot of rotation that needs to occur. So by trying to face straight ahead, by trying to keep your focus in one direction, you actually have to struggle a little bit with the desire of your body, or the desire of your mind even, to be going somewhere else, right? So that's sort of the metaphor that we have with Warrior One, is that it is this pose that is meant to create stability. And it's meant to create its stability partially because it's very stable with what you're doing with your legs, but it's very stable also with the direction that it is pointing you, right? So Warrior One is taking a stand, right? Warrior One is putting yourself in an orientation of a direction that says, this is the way that I'm going to move, right? But it's preparing yourself there. So again, it's deceptively simple. So find a comfortable seat. Let the eyes close for a moment, but that's what we're working with, is that ability to take the stand, or to place ourselves in a orientation, in a direction, and to hold steady with that, even though there's going to be influences, there's going to be pressure, there's going to be things that are pulling at us, trying to maybe take our attention away, to distract us. So we're working with that. It's the orientation, that steady gaze and the steady stance is Warrior One. So start to find your breath moving up and down the spine. And feeling like the breath is a steadying place. So wherever the mind goes, the way I like to say it is, the mind can go wherever it wants on the inhale. But on the exhale, find steadiness. The inhale, the mind can go wherever it wants. The exhale, you find present moment. Here I am. So you can do that by focusing on that sensation at the tip of the nostrils. That's very traditional. You can do that by hearing the sound of your breath in Ujjayi breathing. The constriction, the gentle constriction at the throat, which causes the breath to be audible. Sound that sounds like the ocean or steam. There's lots of ways that you can connect to the sensation that on the exhale, you're creating steadiness. So I want you to feel your seat. And with the heaviness of your seat, you're really dropping into your sit bones. You're dropping into the wideness of your pelvis. You're dropping into the heaviness of your legs. And then keep that heaviness, but start to draw the low navel below your belly button in and back. So you're just drawing back first. So you're stabilizing the lower spine. The low navel draws back. Lower back feels a little bit of like a hug from your navel. And then from your side ribs, start to lift a little longer. And then drop your seat again. And pull your side ribs a little longer and drop your seat. And pull your side ribs a little longer and drop your seat. And now feel that you are drawing the head back in space so that the ears are moving back, but your chin stays neutral with the floor. So you're balancing the head on top of the shoulders. Good. So that same feeling of drawing up through the side ribs, lifting up through the sides of the throat. And still with your exhale, you are creating steadiness. So all of the lift of your spine, it's beautiful. It's the exhale, the drawing down, that stabilizes you. So this is Warrior One. There's an extension through the whole pose. You're reaching long through your spine in Warrior One. but it's the exhale, the steadiness in your legs, the pressing down into your lower body that creates the stability. In meditation, it's the same. The inhale goes where it goes. The exhale creates the steadiness. Hands at heart center, please. We'll open with the sound of Om. Deep breath in. And let the eyes float open. Nice, you guys. Release the hands. Come onto hands and knees, please. Begin to cat and cow. But before you begin to cat and cow, just come into hands and knees. So find that position. And then shrug your shoulders forward towards your ears. Good. Now move your hands forward so that your wrists are underneath where your shoulders are right now. There you go. Good. Now lengthen your throat to bring your shoulders away from your ears. And now pull the tops of your thighs back so that it feels like your hips are on top of your knees, and then press into your shins. So this is actually how long your spine is, right? However you set yourself up before was that automatic shortness that we get comfortable with, or we get used to. From this position, this is your neutral. Start to cat and cow. So inhaling, lifting your chest forward and up as you energetically drag back on the hands, lifting through the tail, and then exhaling, curling and rounding, pulling straight up. So you're not rocking back and forth in cat-cow, right? Your elbows, it's not your elbows, sorry, your wrists and shoulders, your knees and hips stay anchored in line with each other, and you move your spine between that. Good, so keep going with your breath, inhaling, pulling the spine long between those pillars of the arms and the legs, and then exhaling, curling and pulling up through the back of the body. Good, again, between those pillars. So even in that rounded back, the tops of your thighs are pulling back, the armpits are pulling forward. Good, and again, this is huge in Warrior One, because what shortens our Warrior One is when the back is not able to extend easily in both directions, right? So we want to have the ability to back bend. We want to have the ability to round into the curve of our spine. Good. There has to be flexibility in the lower back, the middle back, in order for Warrior One to not feel like it gets stuck. Good. Move a little faster. Maintain integrity, but move a little faster. Good, Susan. Nice. Good, you guys. And then come back to stillness, please. Good. Stretch your right leg back behind you, toes tucked on the floor. Press down into those toes and then drag your right hip forward. Drag your thigh forward and up into your pelvis. Good. So you're actually going to feel like you're lifting your butt up towards the ceiling a little bit when you do that. So the top of your thigh is going to pull up, and then pull your ribs up as well. Good. And now push back through your sit bones. Yeah, so push out through that heel. You got it. Nice. Now maintain that, but take the right foot to flat so the baby toe parallels the back of your mat. Good, but you still have that sensation that you're pulling the top of the thigh up into the hip socket. Now take your right arm to the sky. Press through your left shin. Good, you got it. Pulling the armpit forward, pulling the top of your left thigh back. Nice. Lift the front edge of your pelvis up towards your ribs, so you're rotating that tailbone towards the back heel. Nice, Kristen, that's exactly it. Good. And then open the chest a little more. Take your right arm over your ear, reaching same direction as that long length of your leg. So it's from the wrist all the way down to the heel, one line. Beautiful. And then release back to center, please. Come back to hands and knees. Good. Go to the other side. Left leg comes back behind you. Good. Toes tucked on the floor. And so you're pressing down into the ball of the foot. Pull the left thigh up and in. Good. So it should feel like your butt lifts a little bit. The top of that, or the front of that left thigh, should lift up a little bit away from the floor. Lift the front edge of your pelvis. Nice. Left hand to the, stay there for a second. Press out through that heel. Yeah. Then take the foot to flat. Baby toe parallels the back of your mat. Left arm comes to the sky. Good. So what's interesting about that extended leg here is that, yes, you're lifting the hip up, but at the same time, because the foot is flat the way that it is, it's like your inner thigh has to roll slightly in. So see if you can find that you're rolling the front of your hip points or the inner thigh, sorry, slightly in, but the hip point is actually lifting up and wide. So there's a rotation that's happening on the leg. Take the left arm over the ear and extend. And again, from your wrist or your fingertips all the way down the side body, all the way out through that back heel. Connect the action, connect the arm to the leg. So the leg is pulling up towards the core, the arm is pulling in towards the core, and you're extending through the ankle, through the wrist. Awesome. And then come back to hands and knees. So if all of that felt like more work than you ever do in those positions, good job. Knees wide, drop back to child's pose. But these are the positions, or these are the feelings that your body is going to be in Warrior One, because there is this long extension of the back leg, right? We shorten Warrior One a lot because most of us have tightness in our lower back. We have tightness in our pelvis. Walk yourself to the right, please. So we shorten our stance to try to make the pose more accessible for our back. But if we're really opening up the pelvis, we're really opening up our ability of our spine to extend, then Warrior One is a long position. The legs are in a long position. They just happen to be facing straight ahead instead of the side. Come back to center, go the other direction. So again, the best things you can do is to make space along your spine, the length of your spine for Warrior One, and kind of decompress how the trunk is meeting with your pelvis. Good. It's kind of the same in all standing poses, that's what we're doing. But Warrior One, it's especially important because if your pelvis is not able to rotate with your legs in a spread stance, then the rest of your pose is not going anywhere, right? You're just going to get stuck right there. Come back to center, please. Good. Walk yourself all the way back in, all the way back up. Good. Take your hands to your hips. So Steve, you might want to face forward for this. So come up to a high kneeling position, hands at the hips. Good. And then extend your right leg out wide to the right. So coming into gate pose. Heel should be in line with the left knee. Good. And then stretch the arms out wide. Good. Right arm extends down the right leg. So reach all the way down. Left arm comes over the ear. Good. And so again, in this position, that straight leg, you're pushing through the baby toe of the foot, but I want you to focus on almost rolling your inner thigh back and wide. And at the same time, keep pressing through the baby toe. So you're going to keep this kind of spiraling action going on with the leg. Good. And then come all the way back up to center, arms up. Good. Interlace your fingers, both arms up. Interlace your fingers, press out through the heels of your hands. Good. And then you're leaning the same direction. Lean over that right side again, but keep the hands, interlace. Keep pushing out. Good, because again, I want you to get that stretch all the way through the thigh, up through the hip, up through the connection of the hip to the rib cage. Good, and then all the way back up to center. Nice job. Take your hands down to the floor, please. Good, keep that leg extended. Walk your hands forward like you're in downward facing dog. So again, the purpose here is to roll those inner thighs back and send your sit bones wide. So it's going to feel very awkward, but I want you to try and lift your left hip and low back up a little higher. So as you're rolling that right inner thigh back and wide, it's almost like you're leveling your pelvis. So you've got to do it from that internal place of your belly. Good. Yeah, you got it, Susan. You're good. But hands are out far enough that you really feel like you're in down dog. So you're pressing into the hands, but you're pulling back through your spine. You're pulling back through your pelvis. Good. So you can't just fall into either side, right? You have to keep lifting your left low belly. Nice. Walk your hands all the way back in, please. Good. And then take that right knee down to the floor. So you're switching sides. Right knee comes down. Left leg extends out. Also important that, groin and hamstring and calf, all of those things are important to stretch for Warrior One. Arms wide. Good. Again, making sure that that left foot is anchored so that baby toe is pressing into the floor. There's support for underneath the ankle. And then reach the left arm down the leg, take the right arm over the ear and reach. Good. Watch how much your pelvis already wants to come out of alignment, right? That one of your hips wants to start to fall back to make this easier. Try and keep it in line. So the top of your right hip typically needs to spin back in space. Top of your left hip is going to spin forward. Good, which is going to actually help you send the inner thigh of the left leg down and back. That's it. Come all the way back up to center, please. Take both arms up to the sky. Interlace the fingers, press heels of the hands up. And then same thing, just no hand support this time. Extend out over that left leg. Reach from your rib cage. Squeeze your extended heel and your knee that's on the floor towards each other. Good. And even here, send your inner thighs back and wide. And then reach a little longer. Nice, Kristen. Now relax your shoulders. There you go. Good. Come all the way back up to center. Release the hands down to the floor and then walk your hands straight ahead. Good. Again, that awkward downward facing dog where you're trying here to find this levelness with your pelvis, even though one leg is extended and the other knee is bent. So your right low belly has to lift and widen a lot. And your left hip has to spin forward and down. Your inner thigh has to spin back. Good. And you're still staying anchored through all 5 toes of your left leg. Nice. And then try to keep your rib cage in line. Good. So again, left rib cage has to, well, some of you are doing it. Different things are happening with different bodies here. Good. Yeah, you're all where you're supposed to be. You just have different twists going on with your spine, which is okay. Awesome. Walk yourself back in, please. Nice, you guys. All right. So bend both knees, come back to hands and knees, please. Facing the top of your mat is great. Good. Come into downward facing dog. Tuck your toes, lift your hips. Good. And then step your right foot forward. Good. Walk inside the front foot and move to the center of your mat. So come to wide legs. So walk to your left, to your left until you come to the center of your mat. There you go. Straighten both legs. And again, feeling the spread of your toes. So hands on the floor or blocks that you're touching something. Come up on your tippy toes. Yep, up on your tippy toes. So ankles, huge in Warrior One, right? So lifting up, this is a strength of your ankles connected to the rest of your legs. Squeeze your shins towards each other. Good. Scoop your belly, push your sacrum up towards the sky. Nice. And then keep all of that, but let your heels touch down to the floor. So it's like you're pressing down through your heels, but the rest of your leg is still pulling up to the sky. So there should feel like there's this oppositional energy through the lower legs, right? The calves are lifting up, but your heels are pressing down. So the Achilles tendon, right? That space where the foot meets with the rest of your leg gets stretched. Good. Right hand touches down right in front of you. Take your left arm to the sky, spinal twist. Good. And remember the length of your spine from cat and cow. So typically we put that hand down and we're like, oh, sure, it's right underneath my shoulder. No, it's not. Move it forward. Extend your spine. Good. Pull your hips back. And then same thing that you just did in gate pose, right? That right hip is going to have a tendency to drop. Pull it wide. Good. Nice. And then release and switch, please. Good. Left hand down, right arm to the sky. Nice. So again, here, the left hip is going to be the one that tends to fall in. So pull it wide. Good. Kristen, bring your hand closer towards the top of your head. Yeah. And then lift from the shoulder, from the front of your chest opens more. Nice. And now pull your left low belly wider again. Good. Nice, you guys. Good, Susan. And then release both hands down to the floor. Nice. Walk your hands back towards your feet, please. So like you're walking your hands back underneath you. Good. I want that same feeling of you're squeezing your shins towards each other. You're scooping your belly, pulling your butt to the sky, and then keep walking back. Hands walk between the legs, back behind your heels. You can turn your fingers to face backwards if that works for you. Good. But you're leaning the weight of your hips slightly forward so it stays in line with your ankles. Good. And you're really working that squeezing in energy of your legs. Good. This is going to help to open up those outer hip muscles. It's going to help to stretch, again, the length of the legs. Open up the lower back. Awesome. And then walk yourself forward again. Nice job. Walk back towards the top of your mat. Turn your right toes forward. Step back, downward facing dog. Good. Slide forward to plank pose, upward push up. Lower down onto your belly. Good. And then come onto your forearms for Sphinx pose. Nice. And so you're going to take your right forearm parallel to the top of your mat. So that's your support arm. Bend your left knee, kick your heel in towards your butt. Reach back, left hand for the foot or the ankle. Quad stretch. Good. And you're pressing down through the top of that thigh, and you're lifting through the front edge of your pelvis, right? So I want the feeling of back bending to really happen from that lifting from the front edge of the pelvic bones. Tail reaches back towards that extended heel. And then press down through the right top of your foot, or the top of your right foot. Good. So again, one leg is doing one thing, the other leg is doing something else. And you have to have that long stretch through the front of the body, chest open. Press into that right forearm, open chest. Nice. So right here, right, it's going to start to tell you where in your back or where in your spine you're going to get stuck in warrior one, right? Is it going to be through your legs if that's where the tightness feels like it is? Or is it going to be through your upper chest? Is it going to be through your neck, right? Where do you feel that the restriction is? This is what's going to tell you. Good. And then release and switch, please. So left forearm comes to the top of your mat. Bend the right knee, take your heel in, and knee is in line with your hip. All right. So if it wants to slide out to the side, already that's telling you that there's going to be a tightness in your back when you come into that position. Right. So keep the knee in line with the hip, reach back for the foot or the ankle, heel towards middle of your butt cheek or slightly towards the outside edge. Good. But the front of your pelvis is still trying to work its way towards square to the floor. Good. So keep that top of your right hip point facing down. And then press into that left forearm, lift your left rib cage a little wider. So funny, right? We're squaring our torso to the floor and it requires you to twist, right? That's warrior one, is you're being asked to square everything to the front of your mat, but to do it, you have to twist, right? There's a twist that happens with the back leg. There's a twist that happens with the torso. So it's really about understanding how to orient yourself against opposing energies. Good, or in the face of opposing energies. One more breath, lift the chest. There you go. Yeah, because we get lazy about that in warrior one too. And release that foot. Nice, you guys. Good. Plant the hands or drop the forehead back to the floor. Plant your hands alongside your ribs. Press back, back up to hands and knees, please. Take a brief child's pose. Yeah. You know my philosophy about child's pose. I tend not to do it a lot. But for warrior one, it's really helpful to be moving the pelvis back and forth between these positions of back bending and releasing the lower spine. Good. So I almost want you to spend more time, if you're really focusing on trying to make warrior one more accessible, is I want you to spend more time in a position like child's pose. I want you to spend more time in a position that gets into the roundedness of your spine. Good. And then back up to hands and knees, please. Downward facing dog. Good. Step your right foot forward between your hands. Left foot steps in just a little bit. Take both legs to straight. Good. Parsvottanasana. Use blocks if you need. Good. And then round your back a lot. So hands on the blocks, round your back a lot, like you're doing cat. And then send that outer left hip spinning forward a lot, until your hips are truly in line with each other, right? Truly square. Let whatever's going to happen, happen. So just spin that left hip forward, right? And let whatever happens to the front foot happen. Let whatever happens to your rib cage happen, right? Find square. Good. Now adjust everything else. Once you've found square, now you can start to press through the big toe mound of the front foot again. Now you can start to maybe send your inner thighs back a little bit more. Good. Now you can start to extend your rib cage forward. And if you notice that, again, your shoulders have come out of alignment, then you adjust for that. Good. So you lift the one, always start with lifting where you feel that you are dropping instead of the other way around. Right? So try and find the lift and then notice what has to happen for that lift to continue to happen. Good, you guys. So you're staying connected navel to spine, but now you can extend. Press your butt back, armpits forward. Good. Nice, you guys. Bend that right knee, please. Step your left foot forward alongside the right. Standing forward fold, Uttanasana. Good. And then bend your knees, drop your sit bones low, take the arms up for chair. Good. Take your hands to the tops of your thighs in chair, round your back. Good. And as you round your back, so you stay rounded, now push your butt back in space. Yeah. So I want you to try to stay rounded, but now try to spread your sit bones wide. Send your inner thighs wide, but stay rounded. Good. So your tail stays rooted towards the floor. Now lift your chest without letting your ribs pop forward, without letting your belly drop onto your thighs. Take your arms up, but stay like you're still rounded in your low belly. Good. Lift your chest as high as you can without pushing your belly forward, without pushing your ribs forward. Yeah. And hands to the floor, straighten the legs and bow. Again, if that felt like it was impossible, like I can't possibly come vertical in chair pose, or I can hardly lift my spine at all, that's okay. It's just your body explaining to you, or your spine telling you where there's a tightness, where there's a restriction that needs a little bit more attention. Good. Left leg stays forward, right leg steps back behind you. Parsvottanasana, second side. Always a little bit different when we come into the position, stepping back as opposed to forward. So I want you to step back almost a little bit more than you think is reasonable, because again, we tend not to go as long with our legs as we could. Good. And then again, round your back, hands on blocks if you need, and then send that outer right hip spinning forward a lot, and let whatever else needs to change in order for that hip to spin forward and for you to find where those pelvic points are in line with each other, more in line with each other. Good. Because then from there, you can see maybe that front foot needs to step a little wider out to the left, because that'll give more space for that left big toe mound to root down to the floor. Again, we're creating spirals with the legs when we're in this squared position. And then sit bones go back and wide. So the inner thigh of the back leg has to pull back. Good. But the outer hip is still spinning forward. Good. Even more, Kristen, send that right hip forward. And then lift your left low belly. Good. Try, you guys, here to feel like you are pushing your inner thighs away from each other, not just forward and back. You're pushing them wide away from each other. That's it. So that should stabilize again, right? Then you can move your spine a little longer. Good. And again, this is all warrior one idea, is stabilizing. It's a stable position. Even metaphorically in the story of Virabhadra, the warrior that these poses are named for. Warrior one is simply his creation, right? Shiva creates him from one of his dreadlocks. So he comes into existence and says, here I am. This is me. So that's what we're mimicking with that first position, is just here I am. What is my purpose? What is my direction? Good. But if we're swayed already because of the influences of where our tightness is and where our distractions are and our worries and our doubts and our everything else, that direction isn't steady. Good. Bend that front knee again, step forward again, both feet, top of your mat, straighten the legs and bow. Good. And then bend your knees, drop your sit bones back for chair. Watch that your knees are not splaying wide or falling in, that they're pointing towards second or third toe. Again, press those heels down to the floor. Good. And then hands to your thighs again. Round your back. Yeah, so you find the spaciousness of your lower spine first. Drop your butt a little lower, but keep your back rounded. Now from there, start to find the muscles of your spine alongside your spine. Start to lift your chest. Stay as rounded as you can in your low back. Good. And then keep extending, but don't push the ribs forward. Don't drop your belly. Keep scooping and pressing your sit bones back and wide. Keep dropping the hips and lifting the chest. Doesn't matter how high the chest comes, because if we don't work that energy of the pelvis, it doesn't matter. Good. And then release, please. Hands to the floor, straighten the legs and bow. Nice job. I know it's crazy, all this work for warrior one. Step your right leg back behind you. Drop the back knee to the floor. Use a blanket if you'd like. Good. Inhale the arms up briefly, Anjaneyasana. So again, focus on that back hip, that right hip spinning forward, and your left low belly pulling back and wide. Good. And that lift of the below the navel, so your pelvic bones are lifting up. Nice. So there's the length on the back thigh, the stretch of the thigh up through the front of the pelvis. That's what the back leg is doing in warrior one. Good. Release the hands down to the floor, please. Nice. Move your hip back. So your right hip is on top of your right knee. Take your left leg forward to straight. Come up on the heel. Ardha Hanumanasana. Good. And then walk yourself forward a little bit more. Again, still sending the top of that right hip point spinning forward. Because even here, there's a tendency for the hips to be out of line. Good. Yep. And exactly that, Kristen. Pull that thigh up and in so that you can tilt the pelvis. So you send the top of your pelvis forward. You send your tailbone back and wide. You send your sit bones back and wide. Tailbone extends back. Good. Nice, you guys. And then just notice what your front toes are doing. If you can draw them straight up and down, let them do that. But if the rotation at the top of your thigh is not allowing for that, work with the pelvis first. Good. And then really extend, reach out through your chest. Nice, you guys. And then walk both hands to the baby toe side of that extended leg. So walk to your left. So both hands come to the outside of the leg. Because again, I want you to get into that twist of your torso. So the hips are square, but the torso is twisting slightly. Good. And you're still pulling that left thigh up and into the hip socket. Beautiful. Good. And then walk the hands back in towards the middle. Pull that left heel back into lunge. So pull the heel back, bend the knee, come back to lunge. There you go. And then tuck your back toes, lift the back knee up, come into high lunge. I know, all this on one side, arms to the sky. Good. High lunge is a great preparation for warrior one, right? Because it gives you a lot of information about the flexibility of your spine, of your pelvis. So it tells you already, right? Bend your back knee a little bit so that you can lift your front hip points up, up, up until you really feel like your pelvis is vertical, straight up and down, right? Tailbone down, front of the pelvis, up, up, up. Notice how bent your knee has to be in order for that to happen. Good. Now maintain that. Send your left knee forward a little bit more. Yep. Yep. And then stay there. Start to straighten your back thigh only to the point where your pelvis is no longer straight up and down. Good. And then ideally you would do this multiple times. Just bend the knee, keep reorienting the pelvis, and then start straightening the leg again. Good. And then release the hands down to the floor. Nice job. Step back, downward facing dog. And that's a ton of work to do. But again, you're looking for changing how tight the relationship between your lower back and your legs are, your pelvis and your back. Good. Drop your knees to the floor, please. Child's pose. Again, giving you lots of child's pose today because I think for this, it's incredibly helpful, right? It's not just a resting pose. It's actually a functional pose, which it always is. I was trying to think in my mind when I was deciding what pose to do, how I would teach a class with the focus on child's pose. We'll see one day. Good. Come back up to hands and knees, please. Do a little cat and cow. Because again, I want you to have that back bending extension through the legs. Good. Nice. And then come back to neutral, downward facing dog. Tuck the toes, lift the hips. Good. Right foot steps forward between the hands. Yep. Drop the back knee to the floor. Use a blanket there if you'd like. Inhale, both arms up to the sky. Anjaneyasana. Good. So I want you to let your hips come forward in Anjaneyasana. So I still do want you focused on the idea of lifting the front of your pelvic bones, finding the space below your belly button, drawing your ribs in. So again, you're feeling that it is the power of your back that is pulling your spine longer, chest up. And I want you to let yourself go further forward with your pelvis, even if it tips slightly, because I want that stretch at the top and the front of your back thigh, right? Because you have to have that in warrior one. Good. So I want you to feel that here, even if it means the pelvis is not perfectly level. Chest open, arms strong. Yes. And then release the hands down to the floor. Really good, you guys. Bring your left hip back so it's on top of the left knee. Take your right leg forward to straight. Come up on your heel. Ardha Hanumanasana. Good. You're dragging that heel down, pulling the top of your right thigh up and in. Left hip, outer hip spins forward. That's your supporting leg, spins forward. Good. And then walk yourself forward again. Send your tailbone back. So again, you're tipping the pelvis forward. Top of the pelvis is moving towards the front of your thighs. Groins go back. Tail goes up and back. Good. Nice. Again, outer left hip continuously spins forward, because if you just do it once at the beginning of the pose, I promise that within holding the pose is your habits, those influences are going to start to pull on you again. And slowly that left hip is going to start to fall open. Slowly your rib cage is going to start to twist. You're going to say, oh, I'm getting more comfortable in the pose. No, you are changing the pose to make yourself more comfortable. So outer left hip continuously spins forward. You got it. Take both hands to the inside of the front foot. So walk to your left until both hands come inside. Again, twisting the torso. Yeah, both hands inside the extended leg, Kristen. There you go. Good. So other way, Steve. Yeah. I did this the other way, didn't I? I brought your hands to the outside. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's why you're all looking at me like I'm an idiot. Walk your hands to the right. Sorry. Both hands to the baby toe side. You're right. That was the point. Oh my gosh. See what happens when your focus wavers? Good. There you go. Watch what the toes are doing on that extended leg. Again, if they can stay right up and down, have them do that. Good. And then walk yourself back in. Nice job. Pull that heel back, please, so you can come back to lunge. So right foot comes flat, bring the knee forward over the ankle, lift the back knee up, and then come into high lunge. So squeezing the feet towards each other, take the arms up alongside your ears. And that's important, right? That cue that we squeeze the legs towards each other. So that's the same as that left thigh pulling up and in. Now, again, find that neutral pelvis. So bend the back knee as much as you need to. Lift the front edge of your pelvis until it feels like it's neutral. Even if you're not sure if it is, just go to where it feels like it's straight up and down. And then bend your right knee deeper. Go deeper into the lunge and hold that. Now start to straighten the back thigh only to that point, again, where your pelvis is able to maintain that neutral up and down position. And do that a couple of times, bending the knee, re-lifting the front edge of your pelvis, going deep with the right thigh. Again, you're not going beyond 90 degrees. Good. And then pressing the back thigh more towards straight. So the inner thigh is pulling up. It's that oppositional energy that's creating a stability. Good. Nice. And then release the hands down to the floor. Really good, you guys. Step back, downward facing dog. Slide forward to plank. Good. Lower down to your belly. Nice. Rise up into cobra, pressing through the tops of the feet. Again, from the front of your pelvis, lift forward and up. And extend your tail back towards your heels. That's it. Nice. And then release back to your belly, please, and flip over onto your back. Good. Grab your strap if you have something that acts like a strap. So I'm going to give you two options for working with the strap. The first one is if you actually have a strap that buckles, is I would love for you to, and it's a little complicated to get into. So if you have a strap that buckles, I would love for you to make a very large loop with that strap. And what it's going to look like, you're actually going to have to sit up to kind of adjust it. But what it looks like, right, we're working with the right leg, is you will wrap one part of that big loop around the top of your right thigh. So all the way up on the thigh. Yep. And the other end of that loop is actually going to go around your left foot. Your left leg is going to be extended out on the floor. So it needs to be a really, really big loop. Really big, like most of the length of your strap. Yeah. Good. as we spend the rest of the class trying to figure out this strap variation. Yeah. So the strap goes around the top of your right thigh, right? Your right leg is actually going to come up into the air, and it comes around the ball of your left foot. So maybe send it around the ball of your left foot first. Good. And then as you come down onto your back, your left leg is extended out on the floor. Good. The right knee is inside. Yep. So there should be enough tension on the strap, right? That when you pull your right knee in towards your chest and send the heel up towards the ceiling, that there should be tension on the strap pulling your thigh and your left foot towards each other. Good. So Kristen, that's almost it. I just need you to be able to press your left foot further out. So if you look at where Steve is, he's basically got the strap where it should be. He can come a little higher up on his thigh. Good. And again, if your strap is not made for this, that's okay. So you can still hold the right leg with your hands because you have the ability to do that. So the other option is to ignore that whole thing entirely and just use the strap around the ball of your right foot and have the leg lifted. So if your strap is not going to do this loop thing, right, that's okay. Just work with the strap around the ball of the foot. Good. What's awesome really is if you can have someone help you set this up, is to have that large loop around the leg and to have a strap around the ball of your foot as it's lifted. It's really fantastic. What you're doing with this is creating that pressure on the thighs in opposition to the thigh and the foot in opposition to each other. And it really helps to open up the lower back, to open up the hips, even to open up in some ways, pelvic floor type of thing. So the internal space of your low spine. Good. So again, we're working with those oppositional energies. That's warrior one. We're finding our stance between oppositional energies that says, this is my steady place that I am holding my direction. I'm holding my focus. I'm holding my ground, holding my sense of identity. This is who I am. And not that this is who I am in the outside world sense, but that this is the I am, right? This is what I was created as. It's Virabhadra. If we don't get too deep into, again, the reason that he's created out of rage. He's created out of grief. He's created with the purpose of vengeance in mind. And yet, right, in that first moment, that's not what he is. But he has a purpose. He has a direction. He says, I am here to right a wrong, which is really what he's there to do. I'm here to right a very terrible wrong that's happened. Good. Take one more breath where you are, and then go ahead and release that leg. Good. If you're doing the big loop as you let it go and you take the strap off of the top of your thigh, you're going to have to sit up so that you can set up for the other side. So you're taking the strap now onto the other foot. So left leg is coming to the sky, which means that if you're using the big loop, it's wrapped around the ball of your right foot. Left knee is inside the loop of the strap, around the top of the thigh, and then you bring the left leg up to the sky. And again, if you have the ability to hold your leg, hold your leg. Good. And if you're not doing the loop, that's okay. Strap around the ball of the left foot and just extend up. And keep reaching through that right leg that's on the floor. That's what's important, is that we're just working that oppositional energy. As long as you're working the oppositional energy of your legs as they attach to your pelvis, then you're doing it, right? Strap just creates a little bit more resistance, that's all. Good. Nice. In the warrior series, we start with one, which is that pure moment of I exist. This is my purpose. This is what I stand on. And warrior two is that moment of I'm preparing to take action. I'm preparing to go from this place of stability into movement. And then warrior three is the big action, right? The completion, fully in motion. So if we don't get warrior one steady, what happens to warrior two and warrior three? If we don't understand the dynamic of our pelvis when we're facing straight ahead, what happens when we turn the pelvis sideways or when we're standing on one leg, right? So this is the power of Warrior One, is that it really teaches you how complicated standing still is, teaches you how complicated being straightforward is, right? So there's a lot of symbology there of just simple things like honesty. How easy is it to just be honest? It's not, right? We avoid it a lot. Good. Oppositional energies, how you work within them, not pushing one or the other away, but how do you exist within them? Creating steadiness, long exhales. Good. And then bend that knee back in, please. Release the strap, however you've been using it. Good. Bend both knees. Good. Plant your feet. And just rock on your pelvis a little bit here. So tilting into that arch. So bringing the front of your pelvis forward and dropping the tail down to the floor. So yeah, so Steve was rolling side to side on his pelvis, but stay neutral and just do pelvic tilts. So tilting the pelvis forward, tilting the pelvis back. Again, getting comfortable with that sensation of keeping the rest of your spine as stable as you can. Keep your feet right where they are. Just move your pelvis. Good. Nice. So you start to realize what muscles are involved in that, or which muscles you're using to make that happen. Nice. And then find what feels like neutral. So it's neither arched or rounded. Somewhere in the middle, your hip points are level with the floor. Try to find that. Good. And then toes pointing straight ahead, heels hip width apart in line with your sit bones. Arms alongside you, either straight or elbows bent into robot arms, coming into bridge. And then I want you to remember this feeling of your pelvis, right? Lift from your armpits first. Start to lift your chest open more. And then start to let the hips come up into bridge. And then notice the angle that your pelvis takes when you're in bridge. The hips come up, don't be afraid to bring them up. But then notice the angle. So if your pelvis is now, right, tucked under, meaning that the top of your pelvis is tipping up towards your ribs, I want you to go the other direction. Tip the front of your pelvis forward. Good. So that's going to release through the inner thighs, right? Notice that. Squeeze your heels back. Keep lifting from your armpits. Good. So it's like we're artificially creating that neutral pelvis, even though you're lifted up in bridge. But this is what frees space, because now here your legs can actually move with your pelvis. They can rotate. If you are tucking your tail under so much or pushing your hips up so much, your legs get locked in your pelvis. It's the same thing in Warrior One, right? If you push too far, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get locked. So that neutrality is important, that you're still sending your inner thighs down. So tilt those pelvic bones, front of the pelvis slightly forward, away from your belly. Nice. Release the hips down to the floor. Good. Hug your knees in towards your chest. Like you're doing child's pose on your back, draw your knees a little wider. Big toes can be angled towards each other. Press your shins in. So you're not coming into Baddha Konasana, just hands at the front of the shins. Good. Yeah. And squeeze the knees in and push your shins back against your hands. As you push your shins back, draw into that low belly, push your low back into the floor. Good. So again, those oppositional resistances, those oppositional movements are going to create space, stable space. Good. And then bring the knees back together, please. Cross your right knee on top of your left. So stack the knees, separate your feet, reach for your ankles. Again, this is just to make space in the lower spine, outer hips. Good. And then switch your legs, please. Take the other leg on top. Good. Keep your feet flexed. So again, paying attention to the baby toe edge of your feet here and the angle of your ankles, right? So often in this position, we let our feet turn in, right? They call it sickling, when your ankles are actually falling inward. So that means that the outer ankle is going to get overstretched. The inner ankle is going to get weak. So actually pull back through your baby toe so that you have a neutral ankle, right? Also important in Warrior One. That's one of the best benefits of Warrior One, is that it strengthens your ankles. Good. But if we're not even aware that we have the ability to, right, use our feet to support our ankles to create a stable joint, well, you might not do it in Warrior One either. Unwind the legs, hug your knees in towards your chest. Good. Roll forward and back on your spine. Good. Come all the way up to sit. And then roll over onto hands and knees and come back to downward facing dog. Good. Right foot steps forward between the hands. Left foot steps forward just a little bit until both legs come to straight. Virabhadrasana. Take your hands to your hips. Come all the way up to stand. Right foot forward. Good. And then hand steps, come all the way up to stand. So I started you here, right? Because I want you to feel that, again, this is where you are fairly confident, right? With both legs straight, that you can maintain that level pelvis. So pay attention to that already. Are your hip points in the same line with each other, right? Left hip is going to have to spin forward. Good. For most of us in Warrior One, we can take the legs slightly longer than we do in Virabhadrasana. So maybe separate the feet a little bit longer, forward and back. Good. But the side to side, right? Whatever is comfortable for you to have both legs straight in Virabhadrasana, right and left, how wide your feet are in relation to the outside edges of your mat, that's going to be pretty much the same in Warrior One, or it should be, right? So set your hips, set your pelvis. Good. With your legs straight, lift up through your spine, stretch the arms up alongside your ears. So get that full sense of lift, just like you did when you were seated. Pull up through your side ribs. Good. Pull up through the top of your thighs. Pull up, pull up, pull up. Find that neutral feeling pelvis. Good. And then you're turning your back toes out just a tiny bit, 45 degrees. That's it. Good. And now that you found that 45 degrees, send that left hip forward again. Find that neutral pelvis. Good. And you're still pulling long through your side ribs. Nice. Now you found that neutral pelvis. Pull back through that left inner thigh already. Good. And anchor through the left baby toe of that back foot. Good. So that anchor doesn't change. Now just start to bend your right knee. Keep your belly lifted. Bend your right knee and let yourself move. Let the legs go wide away from each other into Warrior One. And again, maybe you only go as far as you can before your pelvis starts to tip in some strange direction, right? You maintain that feeling of lift through the front of your body. Good. And the chest is wide and the throat is long. Nice. And that back thigh is continuously spinning in towards the midline of your body and back. Good. So that means the top of your left hip is continuously spinning forward. And you press through that heel of the back leg. Nice. Beautiful. And then go ahead and straighten that right thigh again. Good. Left hip spins a little bit more forward. Bow forward, hands to the blocks. So both legs are straight, but you're not going to turn those toes all the way forward back to Virabhadrasana, because I want you to keep playing a little bit with that spiral of the back leg. Good. The widening of your inner thighs. Widening not just forward and back, but widening right and left. Good. And then with your hands still on the blocks, bend your front knee again. Take your legs back into that Warrior One position. Good. Feel how here, right, how much of your forward momentum is taking over your backwards momentum. So the knee is bending forward. Now take equal energy pressing through your back thigh. So pull your hips back in space. Even more, Steve, hips back in space. That's it. Good. And just like you did coming into chair from this forward position, you got to lift that front edge of your pelvis. And you got to get into those back muscles, start to take the arms up alongside your ears, lifting through the front of your body, lifting through the chest. Good. From the front of your pelvis, it's got to lift, 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 lift. And then you draw back, 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 back. And again, it's not going to be perfect. Coming from the ground up is always harder. Good. But start to feel that drop of the tailbone and the lift of the chest and the widening of your inner thighs. Send your back thigh really long. Nice. Awesome, you guys. And now just from there, spin your back heel up, really square that hip, not Warrior One, high lunge. Good. Nice. And then release the hands down to the floor. Good job. Step back, downward facing dog. Good. Left foot steps forward. Right foot steps forward just a little bit, so both feet come flat. So I want you to find your Virabhadrasana first, what feels like normal for that, and then bring your hands up to your hips to come up to stand. Good. And then again, because we're starting with the angle of your pelvis, right? That's the thing that is the most important, because if we don't set that up well, once you're in the pose, it's very, very difficult to make any sort of real adjustments, or it's much harder to make those adjustments. So better to set your pelvis up first in this orientation before you then try to stack your shoulders on top of it. So for warrior one, most of us can step the feet a little bit longer forward and back. So maybe step your back foot further back or front foot further forward, either one. Good, but maintain that ability to turn your outer right hip forward, right? And then turn your right foot out 45 degrees, because now you've set your pelvis and now you've got to change the angle of that back foot. And then still send that right hip slightly forward. Good, and then you're lifting through the front edge of your belly, through the front of your pelvis. Take your arms up to the sky. Good, pull up through your side ribs. Good, and then start to bend that left knee into warrior one, keeping that lift of the front of your pelvis. So you're widening the thighs away from each other. The more the left knee bends forward, equally, that right inner thigh has to draw back. And it's spiraling. The right hip is going inward, forward. The inner thigh is pulling in and back. Good, and then that baby toe of the right foot is pressing down to the floor. So the inner ankle should feel like it is really lifted. Good. The inner knee should feel like it is really lifted. Awesome. Rib cage turns just a little bit to your left. So that's that same energy of the right hip spinning forward. It's going to turn your ribs wider to the left. Good. Nice, you guys. And then straighten both legs. Don't change the angle of the back foot. Take your arms forward and down. Keep the legs straight. Hands to your blocks. Good. So it's like a straight-legged warrior one or a slightly off-center Virabhadrasana. Good. Sending the right hip forward, sending your inner thighs back. So here in the forward fold, you can maybe work that back leg a little differently, right? So you can focus on the lift of the inner thigh. You can focus on the lift of the inner ankle, the pressing down through the heel. Good. Again, you're looking for the flexibility of your back. And then bend your left knee again. So you're coming into warrior one, but your hands are still on the blocks. Focusing on, again, widening the inner thighs away from each other, front and back, but also side to side. The hips stay really stable. Good, and then round into your low back again, like same as you did coming up from chair. Round, round, round. Feel the drop of your tail. Feel the lift of the front edge of your pelvis, and then reach the arms up, 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 extending through the spine, extending through your side ribs. Good, but stay heavy with the legs. Your feet stay solidly anchored. Good. Thighs moving wide. Rib cage open wide. Nice, Susan. Beautiful, you guys. Rib cage twist just a little bit to the left. Yeah. Nice, and then spin your back heel up so you come into high lunge. Really send that outer right hip forward, forward, forward. Still lifting through the front edge of your belly, front edge of your pelvis. Equal weight on both feet. So most of us, again, push back into that back thigh. Good. And then release the hands down to the floor. Nice job. Step back, downward facing dog. Beautiful. Slide forward to plank, lower down to your belly, rise up cobra. Good. And then release back to your belly, please. Flip over onto your back. Good. Right ankle over left thigh, please. Lift your left shin parallel to the floor, reach through to hold. Take a deep breath. And warrior one is about that long length of your spine. And it's the relationship of your upper spine to your pelvis and your legs. So if that relationship is not balanced, then there is no neutrality. There is no ability to stand fully focused, right? You're being pulled from too many directions. Switch the legs, please. Take the other ankle on top. Good. And again, look for those neutral ankles here. This is another place to keep practicing that energy, that when you create that steady ankle, right, pulling back through the baby toe, is that you're also changing how the muscles on the outer edge of your legs are working. So this is it, right? Relationship. How do I exist within these opposing forces? And how do I stay in a state that is true to what I am? That whatever my purpose is, whatever my goal is, I am steady in it, but I'm also neutral. Right? Even though Virabhadra was created out of anger, he was created out of rage, his purpose was to right a wrong. So can you stay steady in that? Even when the world, even when other forces would be easily considered distractions. Good. Release the legs, please. Hug the knees in towards your chest. Squeeze. Nice. Scoot your hips over to the left. Drop your knees to the right. Good. Left arm can go out wide or it can go up alongside the ear. And then bring yourself back to center, please. Scoot your hips over to the right. Drop your knees to the left. Right. I have been saying that I don't do as much choreography in this style of class. That everything that I choose to have you do is with the focus of creating some effect for the pose that we're focused on. And so the pose itself becomes its own reward. But every step that you took to get there is also, right, part of the pose. It's not disconnected, that this pose has no meaning in relationship to warrior one. This pose has no meaning to relationship to warrior two. This pose has no meaning to the rest of my life. Come back to center, hug your knees in. If you take nothing away from warrior one, it is that every step that you take, right, the focus is the same. The steadiness is the same. You're always in warrior one. You're always standing in that presence that says, I am. Extend your legs out in front of you. Flex the feet. Legs on the ground. Flex the feet. Arms up alongside your ears. Good. Press down through your heels. Press down through the tops of the thighs. Press down through the back of your rib cage. So draw that low rib cage down and in. And reach. Press even the backs of your upper arms down towards the floor as much as you can. And then release all of that effort. Let the feet drop open. Arms alongside you. Palms up. And rest. Rest in that essence of I am. Very gently bring the awareness back to your breath. Letting the body begin to stretch, move, whatever ways serve it well. And drawing the knees in towards the chest, rolling to the right side. Take a moment there before you begin to push the floor away. Come back to an upright seated position. Again, finding the steadiness of your seat, the heaviness of your sit bones, the heaviness of the legs, the energy that it will support, the uplifting energy of your spine. Not just the weight of your spine, but how long your spine can get starts from that steady base of your seat. Warrior one, you can say, is where we have the equal meeting of all of those oppositional forces, forward and back, up and down, right and left. So in order to stay steady, to stay straight ahead, you have to balance all of those things. You exist within all of them, and every one of them is pulling you. So warrior one is that steady statement, that strong statement that says, here I am. Amidst all of this confusion, all of this pulling, here I am the force, I am the energy that will stabilize and make connections between these oppositions. So the forward and back is often said in yoga, how we experience the world. The vertical, the up and down, is said how we experience our own spiritual enlightenment. So at the meeting of those two, your connection, your relationship with your spiritual self and your relationship with the world, this is warrior one. How do you stand in that space that is the complete connection between the two without being pulled by one or the other? So Vira one, here I am, ready. Hands come to the heart center, please, palm to palm. We'll open with the sound, we'll close with the sound of Om. Deep breath in. And sliding the thumbs up to the space between the eyebrows. Namaste, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Good work. You have to unmute yourself if you want to say anything to me, but we've just got a minute before I've got to.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you so much. That was fascinating.
Welcome.
My hands
Fun.
sore from writing.
Nice.
Great. Thank you.
Nice. So Kristen, once this ends, it should automatically say that it's converting the file. So just when it's done doing that, then you can share it on Google Drive and just share it to me through my email. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.